and you want to get it across. Thank you both very much. Now, Kate Gross died of colon cancer on Christmas morning at the age of 36. She was a hugely successful woman, a very high achiever. She was working in Downing Street, actually, in her 20s. She spent much of the last year of her life writing a book called Late Fragments, Everything I Wanted to Tell You About This Magnificent Life. And the book is intended for her 5-year-old twin sons, Oscar and Isaac, to read when they're older. It's dedicated to them, and in fact, the dedication says, "There are 2 adult hands which I hope will hold a battered paperback when others have long forgotten me and what I have to say." Well, Kate was going to be on the programme herself. Of course, she isn't able to be, but her mum, Jean, is here instead. And you feel, I think, Jean, that you're fulfilling a promise, really, by being here today, because it can't be easy for you.
As Kate knew she might not be around when her book came out and might not be able to fulfil plans to speak about it, so she asked if I would, and I said I would.
And you were okay to do it?
Yes.
Okay, because I think a lot of people listening will think, well, is this woman going to be terribly upset by talking about this? But
I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, what emerges from the book, actually, is an incredibly spiky, spirited, funny woman that I would genuinely have loved to have met, actually. But it isn't. It is one of the least saccharine books that I've ever read. Is that a fair upsum?
Yes, I think it is. I think a lot of people, as Kate was getting near the end, they tried to make her into some sort of heroine, some sort of, La Dame or Camellia or whatever, but she wasn't like that. She was funny and spiky and didn't want to be put on any pedestal, and you certainly couldn't put her there. She was really just an ordinary girl who's become a bit less ordinary.
Well, she wasn't ordinary, actually. Her achievements were colossal. I mean, in her 20s, she was, to explain to people what it was she was doing in her 20s.
Well, she left university and after we talked about what she'd do, and I suggested the civil service might suit her. She was very good at reading lots of stuff and praising us and making it clear. So she did, and life is a lot of accidents. She ended up covering a maternity leave in Downing Street as a civil servant, and then because of that she became a private secretary to Tony Blair, which she makes clear is not what people think private secretaries are. She wasn't sitting there doing her nails and answering the phone. It's a rather a different role. So she was fundamentally she prepared him for Prime Minister's questions, which is a very tough job. She had to find out a lot of things very quickly. She had to draft the Queen's speech, and she started this when she was 26. So yeah, but it was still an accident of favouring.
Yes, okay, but a high achiever.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, and the picture that she paints of her teenage years is a really interesting one, because she emerges from her teenage years, she blossoms at university, but she wasn't a particularly happy teenager, was she?
No, I don't think until I read her book, I realised, this is awful, but I didn't realise quite how unhappy she was in that 13 to 16 period when girls are just awful to each other. They are, aren't they? I expect you remember that. And she wanted to be part of what she calls in the book the Cooleyverse, and she wasn't part of the Cooleyverse. She was quite studious, she loved books, and for that time she had to, I think, hide what she was and what she believed in just to be like the others. And then when she left school, went to university, she felt able to show what she really was.
Was she pretty grotty to you as well at that time?
I don't remember. She thinks she was in the book, but no, I remember her being absolutely fine. Just a little alien, in the way that where they are. I long for her to grow up, to be someone I could chat to, and she did do that in her 20s.
Yes, she did. But I think that there's also a very, very sad part of the book. Obviously, it is all sad, but when she talks about her regret, actually, at not being able to do for you and your husband what you had done for her, look after you, effectively, when you were older.
Yes.
And it's very, very sad as well. She slightly laments the opportunity to become your friend, but I think you would say that actually she did. She did do that.
Oh, she did. There is a shift in the relationship between mothers and children and fathers and children over time, and it becomes a much more equal relationship, a relationship of friendship, where she would tell me what I should read and what stuff I should put on my face to stop the wrinkles. So it became that kind of very friendly relationship where we shared a lot of tastes and interests, which we didn't when she was a teenager, and that's fine.
She may have had problems with female friendships in her teens, but as she got older, her female friends became hugely supportive and important.
Absolutely. There's just, if you want to understand friendship, and female friendship. The chapter in a book about that is just fantastic. Her friends, she gathered them around her when she was at university, and they've been with her ever since. She calls them her urban family. There's a gay best friend as well as the females. It's just lovely. Every woman should have several.
Yes.
And they have been her sustenance. They're the ones who she could laugh with. It's hard to laugh with a parent when you're dying, but she could still send emails to her, what she calls her best woman, Jenny, her very best friend, and they would howl with laughter at what they were saying to each other. They could be trivial, they could be light-hearted.
And sometimes people feel they can't be trivial or light-hearted around people who are dying, for a multitude of good reasons.
Yes. Kate wrote, as I said, she was spiky. She said she didn't want to be visited by people who would put their head on one side, Diana-like, and touch her arm and offer sympathy. She wanted to talk about shoes.
Yes, well, many of us enjoy a good old shoe conversation. Of course, her sons are tiny. They're 5. How are they?
They are surprisingly okay. It was Kate's biggest fear, and I have to say, she lived for 2 years with that on her mind of how would it be when she wasn't there. They were 3 when she was diagnosed. You can imagine what that felt like. And I just wish she was here now so I could say, touch wood, it may change, but right now they're okay. 5-year-olds are very different from adults or older children. They absolutely live in the moment. So if the moment has Minecraft and Lego and Playmobil, that's fine with them. If the moment has Dad, that's fine with them. They've totally shifted their bastion of security to their very wonderful father. So that's very important. They haven't had to have the change in their circumstances that some children do after a parent dies, or even after a separation or divorce. They haven't had to move house. They still go to the same school, which is very supportive. They have my husband and I and Kate's sister Jo around, and all the urban family of friends. So that they have the spirals of support that Kate talks about a lot around them, and that's really helped. I mean, they ask scientific questions. They've asked very early on, they asked their father, well, how old are people when they die, and how old are they when they die of cancer? And he explained that generally cancer is something that happens to older people, but it can happen to younger people, and Mum was just unlucky. And then they sat there very solemnly and said, how old was Mum? 36. And how old are you, Dad? 36. So they're weighing. They need that reassurance that Dad is very unlikely to die, and we have to give them that reassurance. But as long as you keep things the same, give them the reassurance. Anybody out there now who's facing a similar situation to Kate, I would say it may not be as fearful as you think. Children are very resilient and can surprise us.
And in the last few weeks, or correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps even